Hey folks, and welcome to the Truck King YouTube channel. Sitting next to me today is the 2022 Kia Sorento plug-in hybrid. Now this vehicle right now plays in a category of one. It's a plug-in and it has a third row. So in this video, we'll tell you how the plug works and how the third row works. So let's go for a drive. Let's kick it off with the Walkaround. So total system output here on the Sorento PHEV is 261 horsepower and 258 pound-feet of torque, and that is achieved mating an electric motor with this small 4-cylinder engine. Now the battery pack is 13.8 kilowatts of power, and you need to know that every single PHEV is standard all-wheel drive. Now the model you are looking at right here is the top of the line model. It's the EX Plus. That means we're getting things like these 19-inch wheels, which do look pretty nice. Some nice chrome accents on the side, but what I want to show you is back here at the rear corner. This is where you plug this Kia in. On the other side is where you put the gasoline in, but here is where you plug it in. One nice feature we found is that when it's plugged in, if the doors are locked, this plug is actually locked in place. That is nice to make sure someone doesn't just yank that out of there as they're walking by. And right now, let me show you how quickly this Kia charges. You can see it right here. So first of all, let's climb into the second row here. And this is actually a little over 40 inches of legroom, which is quite a bit. I got plenty of knee room, just enough headroom. I stand at 6'2". And actually the next thing I want to show you is, first of all, this seat, very adjustable. I have a huge range of motion here, which is really nice. And then a lot of features. This seat is heated, and that's standard on this top of the line model. I get this cool little cup holder over here by my left knee, which is nice. And then down in the center, I have a USB port, a 3-prong plug with 150 watts, and then more USB ports over here in the seats. So there really are a lot of features for the second row passengers. And now let's climb in the back row. So to tumble this seat, there is a button up here on the shoulder. It pushes forward. It's not a bad amount of space, whoops, if you don't slip getting in. But I can already see what the issue is gonna be. The floor is incredibly tall. I feel like my knees are in my chest and I don't have enough headroom. So I think safe to say the third row here is gonna be for kids or people you don't like. Although I will say, Kia didn't forget about these passengers. I do have a USB port, my own little vent, my own little cup holders, and on the right side here, we have a 12 volts plug-in too. So yes, you do get a couple features, but big people don't apply to this third row. You're gonna need small people for that. And now let's see if I can climb out of here without falling on my face. Whoop. This is the type of vehicle where you have to choose between storage space or the third row. The third row is kind of emergency use only. When it's up, you're only getting this small amount of space back here. Of course, though, these seats both tumble, and when those seats are down, you have a massive amount of storage space in the rear of this Kia. So I think it's just nice that you do have the option to use those seats if you need to. And one other thing to keep in mind, this is not a 7-seater, this is just a 6-seater. Captain chairs in the middle and then just 2 seats back here in the rear. Now let's listen to the noise that this Kia makes. So first, Dad, put it in drive. And you can hear that's the spaceship noise. And now into reverse. And it actually dings at you in reverse. Now this is a government requirement. If you have an electric vehicle that can move silently, you have to put in a noise, and the take on this Kia is a little bit different than others. I've never heard a vehicle ding like this one. It's a small gas engine paired with that battery pack. Very common setup for a plug-in hybrid. I think the first thing I always look for, Dad, in a plug-in hybrid is how smooth is it? Do you notice when the engine comes on and the battery goes off? And do you notice that kind of power delivery, number one? And number two, how do the brakes feel? Because sometimes hybrid brakes can be touchy. So I'll throw both of those to you first. What's your overall feeling on the drive?
The regenerative braking feels like a normal brake application. I know what you're talking about. There were early models that were very aggressive. You barely touched it and it grabbed like a bear trap. This is not like that. So that's number one. Number two, when the engine kicks in, yeah, you notice it. Is it intrusive? No. It's actually no different than a typical stop-start setup that many of us are used to now. So, you know, slowly but surely these things are becoming more and more integrated, and they're, I'm not going to say seamless, but they are very, very complementary to each other.
So the model we have here, you get just over 50 kilometers of all electric range, and you do have drive modes. You have an automatic mode. Automatic is basically going to see how you're driving, and then it'll respond. So if you're asking for lots of power, it'll give you the engine. If you're driving economically, it won't give you the engine. Then you have hybrid mode that will always keep the engine on. Now, why would you want to do that? Well, if you want to keep your charge. For instance, if you're on the highway, it makes more sense to run with the engine. When you're around town, it makes more sense to just use electricity. Essentially allows you to save it. And then what we're doing right now actually is EV mode. So you can just tell it, nope, I don't want the engine, use up the power. And that's what we're doing, like I said, right now. And you know what, Dad? It's so nice how quiet it is. This is another thing which we're slowly getting used to with EVs, you know, just going from ICE engines to EVs, and it's quiet in here. You hear the wind noise, but you realize that you hear it a little more because there's no engine noise. And then also just, you know, give props to the Kia. Yeah, this is a nice quiet interior. I mentioned off the top that the model we're testing today is top of the line. And what you need to know about pricing is that, of course, going for the plug-in hybrid is more expensive than going for just the regular gas-powered Sorento. So Dad and I have been talking a lot about, you know, who buys it, what's the usage case. So I guess the question there, Dad, is you're spending more money, you know, is it worth it, and what kind of person does it work for?
I've been thinking a lot about that because, like most people, I look at the numbers. I look at sort of the top number, and when I hear 50 kilometers worth of range, my gut reaction is, well, that's nothing. What's that good for? But then I stopped long enough to realize that on a Monday to Friday basis, I rarely drive more than 50 kilometers in a day. And for most people, it's enough. It gets you around town, does your errands, or gets you to and from work. And then every night when you get home, you plug it in. Even on 110, it's a 12-hour overnight charge. And for those who are interested, we did the math a little bit earlier today. And of course, I'm using rates here in Southern Ontario. But a 12-hour charge, about $1.30. $1.30. So that gives me 50 kilometers worth of travel. I do that 5 days a week. That leaves me the gas engine to use on the weekends to drive out to Aunt Betty's. And you know what? You can't scoff at those numbers. Everybody knows what we're paying for gas right now. And man, that's attractive. Very attractive.
Now let's talk about the interior a little bit more here, and I really think both Hyundai and Kia products right now, these are some of the best interiors in the industry because they just look so luxurious, they look really nice and refined, and yet the price point doesn't suggest huge luxury, and that's a really nice thing. It's things like these little details in this sort of beveled plastic, the nice stitching on the dash. I do like the way the screen is kind of integrated with the gauge cluster over there, a fully digital gauge cluster. Yeah, again, Dad, I don't know how you feel about it, but I think this interior is really nice looking. Seats are comfortable. I have no complaints.
I think Kia and Hyundai both were paying attention to commenters like you guys who were going on about hard plastic, gray plastic, looked like the inside of a Tupperware drawer for so many North American products, and they went, oh, I think I know what to do, because there is everything in here is soft touch. There is no hard plastic in this at all. It's either material, soft touch, leather inlays. I mean, yeah, honestly, I dare anybody to get in here and go, yeah, I'm underwhelmed.
And luckily, unlike the Hyundai Santa Cruz and the Tucson, the Kia here, we still have a mixture of physical buttons and touch buttons, a real volume knob, that's important. So even the ergonomics here, I think, are actually really well done too.
Manufacturers in general are struggling with this. As we know, there's been a couple who have gone to touchscreen only to end up reintroducing buttons and switches, because I just realized that a mixture is probably best. There's some things that you just want to be able to touch and not poke.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I said I had no complaints about the interior, but that's not totally true. I do have one, and it's nothing to do with the way it looks. It's totally a functionality thing. The shifter here. This is a knob-style shifter. I've accepted that. That's fine. What I really dislike is a shifter that returns back to the same position after you've shifted. So you can see me using it here. You go over to drive, and then the wheel snaps back to the center. You go over to reverse, snaps back to find neutral. You have to go to this weird mid position, and then it snaps back. To me, it's unsafe. I want to have a tactile feel that I put it over into drive and it stays in drive, much like what they do in a Ram 1500. And you know what? That's something that just, why mess with something that's so important and really could be a safety concern? So that's my one old man rant, and I know Dad, he's got one too.
Well, if that's an old man rant, then what's mine? Super old man rant? I just actually had a thought this morning. Pet peeve of mine, and has been for eons, is people who don't use their signals. I don't know why they think they're there, but for whatever reason, they can't be bothered to let you know what they're doing. So, lots of vehicles, including this one, now have this lane keep assist feature. In other words, if you cross any kind of a line, the vehicle tries to pull you back into the lane because it's assuming that you're not paying attention and you've unintentionally crossed the line. Well, that's what you're doing when you're not signaling. And I thought to myself, this is great, actually. Maybe this will remind all those jack wagons who are on the highway weaving from lane to lane every time this thing tries to pull you back that, hey, why aren't you signaling? If you signaled, I wouldn't try to pull you back in the lane. I don't know. It's a little thing, but I'm hoping that maybe it'll wake some people up to the fact that signals matter.
Well, folks, we have arrived at the end of this one. Now, I have to tell you, this Sorento PHEV, just like a lot of other Kia products these days, the interior here punches above its weight when it comes to luxury. Combine that with the third row and a nice PHEV powertrain, and this is a solid package. So, like I said, that's it for this one. Now, please go below. Let us know what you think of the Sorento here. As always, don't forget to hit like, hit subscribe, hit the join button to become a member of the channel. And hey, if you're interested in these nice new sweaters, go below. You can get one for yourself. As always, come back here to the channel to see what we're testing next. See ya.